All right, this is the Happy House Hunters. We go through the 6 F's of real estate every year, and as a matter of fact, a couple times a year. And so we are starting with finding. The 6 F's are finding, then funding, fixing, flipping, filling, and finally, what is your freedom number in real estate? And I had the opportunity to interview Nathan. Oh gosh, what's it been? 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
And I loved his entrepreneurial spirit, and I also loved the fact that he's a little bit of an inspirational type speaker, I think, more than just a real estate investor, and I loved that about him. And so I definitely kept his name on my short list. And I finally connected with Nathan, and I asked him what he wanted to talk about, what was out of the 6 F's, what was kind of his sweet spot. And he said finding is his favorite thing to do, is finding those deals, finding that perfect property. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Josiah just put in the chat that he has 2 flips, 1 duplex. I love that. So we're just waiting for folks to tap in. So we'll keep an eye on the attendees as they come in. I want to talk a little bit before we get started, and then I'll let Kyle also talk a little bit about this. This is Kyle Brandon. He is with eXp Realty, and he is part of our leadership team in the Happy House Hunters. And so just to give you an overview of what we do, we have this free meetup the first Tuesday of every month. And we record it, and the replay is actually saved in the Kathy Benner International Academy. You can go to kathybenner.com. You see my name here on my square. I feel like Hollywood Squares. Remember the show Hollywood Squares? You can see my name there in the corner, Kathy Benner. If you put in kathybenner.com and just scroll down to the Happy House Hunters, you'll see the free meetups, and that's where all the replays are. It will ask you to register with like a username and a password, which is fine, and but it's all free. So feel free to go there and tap through on the free stuff. You'll see all the replays. And before we actually dive in, I did print out the material that Nathan's going to be covering, and I will actually put the PDF link to that as well under the replay. So if you want to go there and download that, you can do that as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Stephanie Mila Jenkins initiative. And this might be a piece that Nathan doesn't know, but Stephanie was our in-house realtor. She and I had known each other 25 years ago. Then we lost connection. And then I ran into her a couple of years ago, and we, as you know, you always hear this said, we picked right up where we left off as if no time had passed in there. And she almost became like a partner in the Happy House Hunters. She was so vested in what I was doing, and she wanted to roll up her sleeves and really help our investors find the property and help them to fund it. And then, you know, she had tons of referrals on how to fix it, and then how to flip it and how to fill it. And then she again was striving for her freedom number as well. And we loved her. She, you know, I can't even tell you the number of hours that she put into the Happy House Hunters membership. And she was actually the speaker where you are right now, Nathan. A year ago today, she did the whole finding. Because of being a realtor, she did the whole finding piece and just blew it out of the park. And I recorded that just like I recorded this one. And for those of you that are listening, and those of you that are going to be listening on the replay, you'll be able to find her recording of that topic a year ago in January in the Kathy Benner International Academy. Again, go to kathybenner.com, scroll down to the Happy House Hunters free. Anyway, we lost her shortly after that. It was quite a shock to all of us. And Kyle was her partner and on her team in the real estate. And so we've adopted Kyle. So Kyle is now, you know, our go-to person. And so anyway, Kyle and I together started this initiative called the Stephanie Mila Jenkins Initiative. We are asking for your donations to that initiative because what we're doing is we are helping folks get their education to become a realtor. Stephanie loved being a realtor. She connected with all the realtors in the community, and this is our way of honoring Stephanie and giving back. And so we gave away 2 scholarships last year on Stephanie's birthday in May, and we hope to give away 2 more again this year in May. So please tap through on the PayPal. You can also find it if you go to kathybenner.com and tap through to the free Happy House Hunters. You'll see a link there for the initiative as well. But if you go to PayPal and just in the little search bar, put Stephanie Mila Jenkins Initiative, it'll come up where you can donate. And also send anyone our way that wants to, get their real estate license, because we would love to be a part of their success as well. And so for all the realtors that are on this call, I know Nathan is, I know Kyle is, I know Carolyn is. Welcome, Chris. We've got Chris on the call now. Anyway, as you listen in, please send us some folks that are interested in this as a career. We would love to be a part of their success. Kyle, did you want to add anything to that, to the Stephanie Mila Jenkins?
Yeah, I knew Stephanie for about 10 years, worked under her. I was her protege. She's actually the one who got me into real estate. We met at an open house, and I wasn't happy in my 9-to-5. And she told me, how much she loved what she did, and took me under her wing and helped me get licensed. And so, yeah, I really like that we're able to carry on that tradition in her honor. It's really special.
Perfect. I love that. So now I want to introduce you to Nathan Price. And Nathan, I apologize. I didn't have all my handy dandy little stuff pulled up here, that all the wonderful things I was going to say about you. And I was going to read it. And of course, I can't put my finger right on a little event that I had made in my Happy House Hunters group, but it was so
come from the heart if you want,
Well, it was so cute, is why I wanted to read it. It was so cute because I went over to your LinkedIn and it said, and so I have to read this. It says that Nathan Price, Columbus native, real estate addict. I love that, real estate addict, and professional pep talker. I love that you're a professional pep talker. Remember, I said you were very inspirational when I met you, and that's why I kept you on my short list, because I knew I wanted to have you back on. And when I read that, I had to laugh, because I said, that is so Nathan. That is so Nathan, a real estate addict and a professional pep talker. And he will be sharing all the ways that he finds that perfect property. So welcome, Nathan. So give us a little bit of your background and tell us how you even got into the real estate, because I know a little bit of your background, and I'm not sure how you made that jump.
Yeah, well, the jump was very scary, and it always is when you transition from being, this really safe salary, this comfortable spot, and then you kind of tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to have any guaranteed income. I'm just going to be off fending for myself in the wilderness of the world and trying to find clients, and so it was a little daunting, but I did it. I made the transition. And how I really got into real estate was my uncle Bruce a long time ago, like probably 1995. I got to go hang out with him for a day, and he had a lot of rental properties. So I just kind of drove around with him all over Columbus, and at the time his brand new Lincoln Continental. So 1995 Lincoln Continental, and we went and visited some of his properties. I got to walk through some, and he really wasn't explaining them to me. I just knew that my uncle owned all these things. So fast forward to when I'm in college, I kept referencing back to that day when I was driving around looking at properties. And I was like, what did he do? Like, what was his thing? And so I called my mom. I was like, hey, what Uncle Bruce do? And she's like, well, he's a real estate investor. And I was like, yeah, but what is that? It's not a job title. Like, I can't go to college for a real estate investor. And she's like, well, he just, he went out and had a bunch of rental properties. And I'm like, yeah, but how? And so I became obsessed with that how. Like, how did he get to his part? And so I went like a squiggly way to get into real estate. I was trying to get a job that paid me enough money so that I could then quit the job and then be having this nest egg. And I realized by the time I got to about 27 or 28, my savings were non-existent. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was like, if I don't just do this now, I don't think it's ever going to happen. And so I quit my 9 to 5. I actually started a factory job that was at nighttime, so I could actually take the classes during the day because they did not have the online courses when I started. And then one day they offered the online courses, and that, you know, I took the class, I finished all the classes, became licensed in 2018, and
Okay.
yeah, here I am today. So
Well, good. My story is kind of similar in the fact that I was, working 12-hour days in the salon industry, but I actually got into the salon industry because I wanted to buy real estate. That was my aha, and that I knew the salon industry would be the best way for me to do that. Because once I had my aha moment was when I was looking to change careers, and I realized that in the salon industry, there's a thing called a booth rent salon, where the staff just comes in and rents a chair, rents a booth, and then the owner, takes that money and pays the rent. And I thought, what if, as an owner, I took that money and actually paid a mortgage instead? What if I could actually buy a building, and then as my guys and girls paid me the booth rent, I would pay the mortgage and of course the other expenses that go with it. And at the end of 30 years, instead of having a shoebox full of rent receipts because I rented some storefront, I would actually own a piece of real estate. And so that's how I got started. But I went into the salon industry with that in mind, that I wanted to buy real estate. And I remember I started with a partner, and I remember telling my partner the day that we signed for a lease for a storefront, I said, now we're going to do this salon, but in the first 2 years, we're going to buy a building. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah, we're going to buy a building. And so that's what I did. And it worked so well that then I bought the second one, and then I leveraged the first one. When folks are like, well, how do you fund it? I funded it out of my own income by just leveraging my equity and refinancing and pulling some cash out, waiting 2 years, doing it again, waiting another 2 years, doing it again, and so on and so forth. And so by the time I retired in 25 years, I had 5 commercial buildings paid for. And so that's how I got started. And it's a process. It's a long game. For those of you that are listening, it's a long game. This is not a get rich quick. It's a long game. But if you start early enough, you have time to play the long game, and it is so worth it at the other end. And I didn't start, again, for some of you that are listening, I didn't start till I was 40. And I knew I had to get started because I didn't have but maybe 20, 25 years between when I started and my retirement to get some of those mortgages paid off, because it is a long game. And I did borrow the funds every step of the way. And I simply used my previous purchases, refied those to pull some cash out for the down payment. I didn't gain enough equity to pay cash for additional buildings, but I had enough equity that I could pull out the down payment, because again, I was doing commercial loans at 20%. So anyway, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. So I get it. I'm glad you're here. And Nathan, you are young enough that you're going to be way ahead of me by the time you get to my age. So tell us, how do you find these great deals? How do you find them? That's the hardest part, is finding that perfect property.
yeah, well, I think that one of the best things that I've kind of learned is that, a lot of people say like, well, the market's too high right now, you can't find deals in the MLS, or if it goes, and I'll talk about these off market ways, but then it's like, oh, these wholesalers are asking so much money for these deals, or vice versa. I'm driving for dollars, and I just can't find these properties. And right now I'm actually on this call in the basement of a house that I was listed on the MLS. It was on the MLS for like 3 whole days. And I was like, how's this property not purchased yet? Like, this is crazy. And I ended up calling the agent. Some clients had sent the house to me first, and they were like, hey, can you show us this house? And I was like, sure. So I met them here, and something happened and they couldn't make the appointment. And so I called them when it got to about the 15 minutes after part. And I said, hey, just making sure you're okay. They're like, yeah. They're like, we got tied up, we're not gonna be able to come out. So I said, okay, so are you gonna pass on this property? Because they just kind of wanted to check it out. And I was like, I like looking at houses too, being licensed. I love going in and checking them out. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna stick to our appointment. I'm gonna walk through this thing and just let you know what it looks like. They're like, okay, great. So I walked through this house and it ended up being a single family home. That's what it was listed as. And I saw like another room, but there was no door for it. So I was like, where is this other room? I went outside, looked, I'm looking through the window and there's like a whole second house here. And I was like, what is this? So I walked around the side of the house and there's 2 French doors there. And I don't know why I went like this, but 2 French doors. And there was a whole second mother-in-law suite to this house.
Wow.
So it's a single family home, but it had an addition added on by somebody in the past. So I didn't even get through all the way on the other side. And I called my clients and I said, hey, are you passing on this property? They're like, yeah, we're not gonna be able to do it. We're not gonna be able to make it. So yeah, if we pass, I was like, okay. So I called my partner. I was like, hey, you need to come check this house out. I gotta run, so I got another appointment, but check it out. Let me know what you think. And it was an MLS property. We ended up buying it. We had a private lender that did lend us the money. This was about 7 months ago, and now we're in the process of refinancing it. But it's now my primary residence. I'm house hacking to the extreme. I've got 4 roommates, 2 dogs, so it's a packed house. But it's cozy and I like it. And but the biggest thing there is, it kind of leads to my first point, is that there are still deals on the MLS.
Yes.
And don't let anyone talk you out of that. I will say this, is that some of the things that like when we say MLS too, I kind of broke it down here. We do talk about the multiple listing service. It is what whenever a property gets listed by an agent, it goes on there and it syndicates to Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, which is also Zillow. But any of the search platforms you use to look for houses, that's where these are getting listed at. So one of the things is that they don't last long. So the biggest thing with these particular properties or deals is that, you want to have your criteria down, which we've talked about when we did our interview 2 years ago, is you kind of want to have an idea what you would do with the property. So that way you're not trying to walk through this house and in your mind rip down walls and do all this, you don't have a ton of time to do it. But the other thing is that these houses are also, there's eyeballs on it from all over the world, because there are international buyers that are buying in Columbus right now. So when a property gets listed on the MLS, there's still, like we were saying, there's still tons of deals there, but you have a lot more competition with that. So these are the most competitive listings. And one of the things is that I really do recommend, and like any one of us could tell you, having a realtor that can kind of, at the drop of it, if they know you're looking for investment properties, they do need to be able to get you in there as soon as you see it. And likewise on your side too, when you're going to find these properties, if you're actively searching, make sure that you can go look at them and have your decision makers there right away. There's a saying, and it's kind of that time kills all deals. And from the time that you're looking for the house, you need to try to get it in contract as soon as possible, because there's other people racing to their phone, racing to their car. I carry my laptop with me everywhere, so that way if I have to write an offer in front of the house, I will.
I have a quick story about that as well. Mark and I, we're kind of wanting to break into the Hocking Hills market to do short-term rentals. So we kind of look, how it is. And my favorite is Trulia. And I just got comfortable with it, but I know it's, has a delay from the MLS. Well, Mark happened to be looking and he found this. We found 2 or 3. We drove down, we drove around, and they were in contract, right? That's how that works. So he finally finds one. And so long story short, on Thanksgiving Day, we drive and we're thinking, what? How is this still here? And it had been on the market like 3 days. And we're like, how is this not in contract? And maybe it is, because, again, we're looking on Trulia and we thought, okay, maybe it is. And so anyhow, then it disappeared off Trulia and we were like, yeah, already sold. And by the time we got back home, it popped back up again. So I don't know if they just pulled it to fix something on the listing. I don't know. So then on Friday, this would be Black Friday, the Friday right after Thanksgiving, we drive back down, we drive all around it. While we're there, 3 other cars are driving around it and they're looking. And so Mark just on Friday, he just calls the realtor and he says, hey, we want to see inside this property. And she says, well, I'm sorry, but there's tenants living there and you have to wait till Sunday for an open house. And she said, we're just showing it the one time at the open house on Sunday. And Mark says, if I make an offer now, would you cancel the open house? And she's like, well, yeah. And Mark says, I want to make an offer then. And she's like, okay. So we made the offer just a couple thousand over the asking price because we saw there were 3 other cars looking. And I want you to know that exactly 7 days later, a week later on a Friday, we closed on that property.
Yeah.
And then we drove down to see what we bought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what we
Yeah.
did know, well, we already knew this. We knew that that property was going to need a well because it's out in the country and it had a water tank. And so the tenant had a water truck, bringing them water every couple of weeks, which is more common than you realize.
Yeah.
And so we knew that we wanted to drill a well at some point. So we, I've been pricing that in the meantime because we just bought this, Thanksgiving, first week of December. And then we left and went to Florida. So now that we're back, I'm doing my due diligence and getting prices for a well. So the prices for a well are anywhere from 15 to 17,000. And the question we ask ourselves is, would we have paid 15 to 17,000 more? If it already had a well, would we have paid 15? And the answer was, yeah, we would have paid that to be in the Hocking Hills region. So that's how fast those things go. And now when we go down there, because we wanted to make sure everything was, buttoned up before we left for Florida. And while we were there, people are driving by and knocking on the door saying, is this for sale? And what are you going to do with this? And we're like, no, we just bought it. But that's how fast things are going. So I get it. So you travel with your laptop to do your offer right then.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing too, is just like you said, if you had waited till Sunday, there would have been a bidding war on that house, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So that's the other thing too, is, on a property like that, you already know you did your due diligence ahead of time as far as the area. You'd already done all your reconnaissance. So you knew that if you get at this price, even if there's X amount of dollars in repairs or renovations you want to do, it's still a good deal. That's one of the things, is really knowing kind of the area you want to be buying in. And that's how I find some of my deals, is that I have just a very small box circled on the MLS right now on a personal search. And every day that there's new properties, like, it's my hot sheet. Like, it comes up and I look at what's new, what just sold, and I'm just becoming a hyper expert in the area that I want to invest in personally.
Yes.
Because, if I go and decide to change my criteria, a few years ago I bought on the east side. Well, now I'm buying on the west side, and I don't have my finger on the pulse quite as much at those east side neighborhoods. I could figure it out. I could run the comps a little quicker just because of the profession, but on the west side right now, I could tell you if something's 10,000 overpriced, or if I could offer something a little bit lower. And that's one of the things, is like constantly looking at where you want to personally be investing. So just like you did, if you have to put an offer sight unseen, you can be a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily recommend that for all of the novice investors. However, once you get or especially if you're trusting in your trusted professional, we give you the synopsis of what the other stuff is doing. If you can make an educated gut check right there, then it's usually good too. So a lot of times when I'm having clients send me, I'll have the search set up, and I still get Zillow links. Everyone looks on Zillow or Trulia. And so one of the things that people send me a lot is auctions. So I've kind of listed this from like the most competitive and kind of went down to where, there's a little bit more grassroots stuff. But I did put auctions in here. They are a great place to get find deals and get properties under market value. Couple things that the pros to it would be that it's exciting. It's just like you see, and when it's the live auctions, there's an auctioneer up there, and it's a fun environment. If you do the online auctions, if you've ever done an online auction, even if you go buy something on eBay, you're sitting there refreshing it up until the last seconds. And so auctions are exciting. And one of the things that I advise my clients, and even myself, I try to stay away from auctions too, but They want that excitement. They want that emotional response into the auction system. So when you go in, you kind of have to be mentally ready. And, oftentimes if you're going to be going to an auction, you probably love the property. There's probably some emotional attachment to the property then. So
Now, can you sometimes not be able to get in though? You can drive by and see it, but you can't go inside a lot of those auctioned properties.
I would even say typically you can't. So the
Okay.
biggest thing is that, yeah, typically I would, I tell people, I'm like, there's probably tenants in there. It's probably people facing foreclosure. They're going through a really, really bad, dark time in their life. Not always, sometimes it's to settle an estate, or sometimes, but if you see the really good deals, like the really good auction deals, there's a couple things that go behind that. So there's two types of auctions that I talk about mainly, and that's like your regular, your bandstand where the guy puts his pedestal up, he comes up, he's got his gavel, and he does an auction. And it's like a retail auction. So the house is able to be toured, you're able to go look through the barns, the sheds. It's typically more of a rural setting, what you see mostly. Just because now most people know if they list something on the MLS in the city, it's probably going to get bid up anyways, just through the excitement. But some people still like to sell through auctions. And the other kind is like the sheriff's auctions. And in the PDF that we have online, there is a clickable link for where I got this information and some of the other stuff. So if you want to go and explore that, it's the Franklin County Sheriff's Auction website. But a lot of these are going online now, especially with COVID. It was a good reason for them to make it all online and virtual. But yeah, like you said, Kathy, you don't really get to look through these properties. And sometimes there's tenants in there. Sometimes there's, it's just, there's a situation that property is being auctioned off, and it's usually not good. So you kind of have to budget for the worst case scenario to get the property, and then anything that's not worst case scenario that's your reward. So
Well, and again, because I am an investor, I've got tons of stories, and I like to kind of tell the stories because that helps our listeners kind of know in real life how that works. And so we found a property over in Asheville, and it was one that was getting auctioned. We were able to get that one for $36,000. And it's a 3-bedroom, corner lot, 2-car garage, paved driveway. And when we got inside, the whole kitchen was missing, and the air unit outside had been cut off and was missing, which we found out later it was the guy that was losing the house was the one that had done that. Anyhow, the bathrooms were stripped out, the kitchen was stripped out, the air unit was gone. And I turned to Mark and I started to complain, and I said, I can't believe we have to put all of this back. And he said, that's why we got it for $36,000. Don't forget that. He said, it is not going to cost us to put it back what we would have paid retail to buy it already together. So he said, that's why we got it for $36,000. He said, don't ever forget that. And I said, okay, you have a point.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because on number 3 on the bottom of my auctions thing, I said, do not get emotional about these properties. So, and that's exactly right, because sometimes it's very easy to let our emotions get to us too. And, let's say that you love that property. For some reason, let's say that you got attached to it sentimentally, and someone was right there with you and they bid 36. And then your first instinct is, well, I'm not going to let them beat me. Like I'm going to go up to 40. And then they come 42, and then you're bidding. And that's one of the things that I say to avoid is avoid that bidding war, like avoid that the urge to keep going just to win. Have your number where it's like, hey, if I absolutely have to replace everything in this house, my number is 36,000. And then I still have profit, I still have equity, I still have all the nice stuff at the end. And then if it goes over that price, that's when you kind of say, okay, I'm tapping out because I had a hard line where I was going to be at. That's the hard line, on to the next one, because there's always more deals.
That's great advice. Great advice. You have to know your numbers. Yes, that's great advice.
Yep. So, and I'm guilty of it. I had a house, actually, same scenario happened. Client sent it to me. I went to meet him there. I had my drill ready. I undrilled the back door, got him in there, and they walked in. They took 2 steps in. They could smell the poop from somewhere in the house, and they're like, I was like, we haven't even walked in yet. They're like, I can smell poop. I want to get out of here. And I was like, that's how you know it's a good house. Like, that's great. Let's go. You're trying to flip this thing, not live in it. And
Yeah,
they backed
that's
out.
why it's the price it is.
So same thing. And so what happened was they were like, we're gonna pass. It's like, are you sure you're gonna pass? Because if you pass, I might explore getting this one. And so I ended up picking it up, and our original contract price was 75, and that's what we were going through. And when we got like 3 or 4 days out from closing, the owner had called their agent and was like, hey, I need at least 80 because XYZ. And I was like, all right, well then no deal. But someone that was with me at the time was like, you're gonna let it go over $5,000? I was like, yeah, because we have these numbers. And then what ended up happening was I caved and we bought it for 80. And then it ended up being kind of like the what's the movie where it's like the house, the bathtub falls through the house, and Money Pit, the movie
The
Money
money
Pit.
pit.
It was just like that. So it ended up, I betrayed my system. It ended up being a terrible learning experience. And it's funny because it's like, I already knew that lesson. I didn't have to do that lesson. So, the lesson I got out of there was like, don't betray your system. But,
Right.
yeah. So even something as little as a $5,000 difference, it's not like it's going to make or break anyone. Obviously, I'm still here talking about real estate. So I didn't
Yeah,
throw
but
the towel
that
out.
that would have paid for the furnace and air, brand new furnace and air unit for you.
Oh yeah, it would have paid
Yeah.
me for the foundation wall that ended up needing to be replaced. It would have replaced, it would have helped a lot of stuff. We
I
had
get
to,
it.
yeah. So, that's one of the lessons I learned
I get it.
quickly about that. But
Carolyn wants to know, can you talk about the amount of cash needed up front for the auction bid and also the percentage added to the sales price for the final price?
yep. And so I included that on the PDF form. So whenever everyone gets that, it'll be on there too. But typically what I see most common is a 5 to 8% buyer's premium that they add, that they want as soon as the auction's done. And so
Okay.
that's just what you pay for basically the auctioneer's service, essentially. And then, they'll tell you, typically they'll have a different timeline for if you're using some type of hard money, or if you have a loan that's already been approved, they just have to put a stamp on it. They'll give you like a couple weeks to actually close the deal and get it done. So the link is in the is right below that percentage too. But typically what I see is about 5 to 8% on the high side. And it's usually 8% when it's like the lower price point houses, when you're in that $30 to $50,000 price range for these auction houses. And you will find the auction houses on Zillow, by the way. So it's not something, there's not a separate secret, there's not a secret like list for these things. They're just not as common as they used to be, but it's something I see pop up enough that it is a place for deal flow. And there are still good deals. If you want to put in the effort and you want to go through the auction process, it's still a really great way to find deals. You just kind of, I don't recommend it for the newbie getting started. I recommend it for someone that's a little bit more seasoned. They got a little bit more cash. They can weather the storm a little bit if something unexpected happens. But I don't want to discourage anyone from trying, because that's how we learn. So, always give it a try. There's just not quite as many options right now as there have been in the past. So do we have any other questions about auctions before we go to the next topic? Because I think the next topic's a slippery slope. We might end up talking about it for a little while.
Yes. I want to welcome Adrian. Of course, we still have Carolyn with us. We still have Chris with us. Josiah's with us. I want to welcome Sean and Stuart. So thank you everyone for being with us. And I am monitoring the chat, not the question and answer. So if you have any questions, just add it in the chat.
Cool. So one of my favorite topics is wholesale real estate. And this is something that I knew existed when I was doing all my research in my college dorm room, but I didn't really know what it was. I always consider it like a secret list. Like you had to know someone that knows somebody to get on this list. Like, where's this list of properties that aren't your normal properties? And so, it wasn't until I got licensed and someone told me, they said, oh, you should go to the coin event. I was like, what the heck's that? And so they're like, go to the coin event, and they talk about real estate investing. And actually that's where I've met Kathy at quite a few of those too.
Yes.
And so
So for those that are listening, if
Yeah.
you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, the coin, let me look at my calendar. The coin generally meets, is it the second Tuesday?
I thought it was.
No, third.
Yeah, second to last. Yeah.
Third Tuesday at the Crest on Indianola, if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, the third Tuesday, and the doors open at 5. The meeting doesn't get underway until maybe 5:30 or 6, but that's when business gets done, is that time before the meeting, because everyone there is connected to real estate in some fashion. So I invite all our listeners, and if you're from out of town, I own a bed and breakfast. Let me know if you need to stay overnight.
Yeah, and it is awesome. It's adorable. I've seen it in person, and it is very nice accommodation. So anyone would love to stay there.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one of the things that I kind of want to do is when you talk about wholesale real estate, I include the definition of what wholesaling actually is as a business term, and it's the sale of commodities in quantity, usually for resale, as by a retail merchant. And so when you think of the definition of what wholesaling is, it's talking about buying something and just immediately transitioning to someone who will then add their markups to the retail environment. And I thought that was a good definition because essentially what it is someone goes out and they have whatever methods they do of finding these properties and acquiring them. And we just call them the wholesalers because that's what they are. So they'll go out and they kind of, through all the different methods that it's, they've perfected this craft. It's never perfect. Everyone's going to always get better, but they're very good at it. They're able to talk directly to homeowners and get a house under contract. And then what they do is usually the deal is it's a very, very good deal. They all come with their quirks. There's a reason it's a good deal, just like we talked about before. There might be a roof that caved in. It's been vacant for 2 years and all the pipes are rusted solid shut. You don't know why it's vacant, but again, the numbers look really good on them. Typically it's a really good deal. I also defined what an assignment of contract is. So I went to nolo.com, which is like the legal Webster's dictionary. And basically an assignment of contract occurs when one party to an existing contract, the assigner or the wholesaler, hands off the contract's obligations and benefits to the assignee, the buyer, and ideally the assigner wants the assignee to step into his or her shoes and assign all the contractual obligations. And so that's a really big way of saying they find the deal, they lock it up under contract, and then you're going to be buying their interest in that contract. And then they will charge a fee for that. So,
now, does the seller always know that that's what's happening? How does that work?
And not always. So that's one of the things is that it's not always understood that the person that's getting the house into contract, the person sitting on the couch with them that day, talking to them over coffee or whatever, is actually going to be selling their interest in the property. And that's where it kind of comes down to, and I know Josh Hively is like amazing and he has a very good business. I love him to death. I always run into him out in the world, but he has a very good business, and he's does wholesaling at a very high level. And it's not like, that's when some people have a negative connotation of wholesaling, but really a lot of people, and I can correct me if I'm wrong, but his marketing methods and stuff, it's people reaching out that need help. Like they usually have a distressed property, or they had tenants that just moved out and trashed their house. And these are mom and pop investors. These are us. These are the people just like us that, we are not some big hedge fund. We're not some big, commercial real estate entity. We have our little portfolio. We've got our dream number. We're doing this as like a semi hobby, but mostly trying to build a better life for ourselves. And same with these people. And sometimes tenants move out and trash their house, and then they're at wit's end with it. They're like, the house is paid off sometimes. I don't want to put the $30,000 or $40,000 into getting it back up to rentable condition. I saw that caveman sign on the side of the road. I'm going to call them. And, sometimes it's just that people have a distressed property. They don't know what to do with it, or they're tired of dealing with it. And so,
and by the way, Josh and Harvey are our speakers for next month. So I'll give a plug to Josh and Harvey. They're going to be here next month. Yeah. First Tuesday at 6 o'clock next month. So all of you that are, Yes. So all of you that are listening, put that on your calendar. So.
Yeah. So now there's also other people that wholesale that are not as, mindful of other people. And, there's some ways that it doesn't get done the best, with the most couth, I'll say. But, what happens is the access to these deals really comes from a lot of networking. And so just like what we're doing here on this call, any one of us could plug you into some people that are good wholesale, just like Josh Hively and some of the other people that are doing it at a really high level. They can bring you deals that are, done with integrity. They're really good. They're not all going to be, rock star deals, but a lot of times there's enough of a margin there. You can typically see pictures of the house beforehand. Sometimes they'll have an inspector come through and actually inspect the house, and they'll give you the inspection report for it. And they're not marketing the house, they're marketing their contract. And that's the biggest thing that keeps us legal, is that when you're just buying the contract, you're not actually marketing the house. And so one of the things is that when people say it's all in who you know, I had that misconception that I had to be a licensed agent to find all these people and find these deals. And really it's just have a cup of coffee, come have a beer, listen to people talk, network. And that's the biggest thing, is put yourself out there as much as you can, whenever you can, because that's the best way to get in front of these deals. And luckily, now that I've done, and Kathy, I've seen you at a bunch of these events for years. We've spoken. I've come to the Mohawk and joined.
Oh, you went on mute. You hit your button. Nate, you're on mute. Nate, you're on mute.
How about
There
now?
you go. Yep. Sorry, you
Okay.
went on mute. We missed
I had
the
a call
last thing
coming
you
in,
said.
so hold on. Let me reactivate my headphones here.
I knew something happened there.
Yeah.
Did you come unplugged?
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay.
You're good. So we lost you
I'm
right
on
when you
phone.
said you had gone to the Mohawk, and because we did our holiday.
Okay. So I met you at the Mohawk and networked, and that was very selfishly, I was there for me. I wanted to meet you. I wanted to meet the other people in your group. I wanted to network and get my face out there. And here we are 2.5 years later, it worked.
Yeah.
But one of the great that, you have to put yourself out there. I know sometimes it's really good to be an introverted person. You don't have to talk at these networking events. You can come and just listen and hand some of your card, or just get their number and say, I'll be in touch, but it is kind of stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit. And that's kind of the first step to this whole process, is be a little uncomfortable and get out there. And so when we talk about the deals that come with real estate, or with these wholesale deals, just like, when something's listed on the MLS, usually the title work's going to be great. The pictures are there. You're able to inspect the property. You have all these benefits. The biggest the biggest negative to it is that there's so much competition. So when you kind of flip the scales, that's where wholesaling is on the other side of this. There's not as much competition for these deals, which is not always true in our competitive market. Even our wholesaling market in Columbus is very competitive right now, but it kind of flips the roles. You get a cheaper deal, but there's a lot more risk to it. There's a lot more, you'll have clouded title that you have to, sometimes wait to get cleared up. You'll have siblings that don't want to cooperate, and they won't all come to the closing table because they're mad at so-and-so for what he did at that one family event or something, fill in the blank. I've seen a lot of these different things. The day before closing, someone breaks in and steals all the copper out of the house. There's a lot of things that go on with these properties. They have their different quirks, but typically this is going to be where you have a much more accessible deal flow. Now, the other thing too is you don't have to be scared about this and go in it alone. You can be, I've represented people on wholesale deals. Now, we make, typically buyers agents like myself, we make 3% off the purchase price. So, I helped the client find a $50,000 house. The wholesaler was not budging. They did not want to pay my 3%. And my client just said, hey, you found me a great house. I'll pay your $1,500 or whatever. So we ran it through. He ended up paying my commission. Everything was well. I sent him like 5 more deals. He closed on them. Sometimes I can negotiate the realtor fees into it. Sometimes I can't. A lot of the wholesalers would just like you to add it on top and then present it to your clients at that price. I usually just show them what the price is because I want them to see exactly what I see. I don't want it to be sound, I don't like marking up stuff on it, unnecessarily. We can always usually figure it out. But that's one of the things too, is that you can still have representation on wholesale deals, and, consult your realtor about it, consult some of the other people that are in the groups. You don't have to go in it alone and, undertake this big scary thing the first time. There's people to help you with it.
And this is a great time for me to jump in and plug our mastermind. Yeah. We do have a mastermind in the Happy House Hunters. So for those of you that are listening today, you can join our mastermind. It's $25 a month, and you can subscribe and unsubscribe anytime. And with that, you get a course all about the 6 F's of real estate. But in the mastermind, you get me. And I see some of my members are on the call. And I try to always pick up the phone. If it's one of my Happy House Hunter mastermind folks, I try to never skip that phone call, because those deals go fast. And sometimes when you need some advice or you need a sounding board, you need it now. You don't need it 3 days from now. So I try to never skip those calls. And Kyle is the same way. They call Kyle, they call me. Sometimes we're on a conference call together. Sometimes we're on a text thread together with questions and answers. And so we try to make ourselves available as much as possible to our mastermind members. So I'll toss that out. Again, you can find that at kathybinner.com and just scroll down to the Happy House Hunters and you'll see it there. So didn't mean to interrupt, Nathan, but that was a perfect time to plug that, because you don't have to go it alone. There's enough for everybody, and we want everyone to find their niche. So
yep. So some of the cons that I did put on here, and this is not a con if you have tons of cash, but I figured for our newer people that maybe don't have this giant Scrooge McDuck bag of gold coins on their back. One of the things is that cash really is king when it comes to these deals, because of how quick you can close. And just like Kathy said, with their deal that they closed the next Friday.
Yeah, 7 days.
You can do that if you have cash. Yeah, and just like that, she didn't do any inspections.
Right.
It was just go straight to buying. Like, hey, we're going to be cash buyers. It's over list price. Let's do this. And so sometimes when they say cash is king, it is. Now, I did say that there are different ways to be a cash buyer without actually having liquid cash in the bank. So some of those are either, and how I bought this house. So the house I'm in right now, I had a private investor, and honestly, it's a funny story. It was our friend's parents who had a bunch of cash, so they sold real estate in another city. So they knew real estate. They were comfortable lending it. We knew what we were doing because we've done a few. Well, I loosely use that term, but they knew what we were doing. And the goal was to refinance it and live in it. So obviously we had a high amount of personal equity and personal stake in the property. So it's much easier to get a private line of credit on that. You can also use a hard money lender, and they'll typically only require 20% of the house purchase price. So let's do easy numbers. For $100,000, you can bring $20,000 down plus some closing costs, usually about $4,000 to $5,000. And then they'll finance the entire purchase of the home. And if you have your renovation budget lined out already, they'll actually fund 100% of the renovation budget up to a number that makes sense with the ARVs, so the after repaired value of the house. So hard money is another option. They can typically fund in 7 days. So the two that I've used personally, and Dan Rohr, I forget his last name. I'll make sure it's plugged in there. Dan Rohrer, with Fund That Flip. If you come out to any of the, he has been to coin events too. You'll meet him if you come out to some of these other networking events. But he's always out, tries to be, you get to meet him and talk to him in person, shake his hand. He's a real person in Columbus. And then Wildcat Lending is the second one, and we have money. They're doing a project we have right now over on the east side. It's wrapped up. We're just waiting for the refi. But that one also. So I've used both companies. I've used private money. And I do not have the best credit score or anything. I'm very cash low because I'm buying so much real estate. Not even that much. Just I have a lot of my money out all the time. So when we look at that too, it's like we just have there's just different ways that you can get cash to buy property without having to have it in your personal
bank account.
Now, in our Happy House Hunters membership site, we do have a resource section, and every time we get some referrals from some of those folks, and like folks like you that have used folks like that, we put them in our resource. So we have a list of hard money lenders and private money lenders listed in our resource section. So for those of you that just kind of need a team and you don't have a team yet, we can be your team.
Yep. And I will say this, if I had a resource like that when I got started about 7 or 8 years ago, I would be leaps and bounds further than I am right now. I did everything by trial and error. My first realtor that we used ended up, when I went back and looked at Altas that I have now, there's lines of additional commissions that were to the tune of like, we paid him 6% when he was supposed to be getting 3%, but we brought the money additionally, like we kind of got swindled. And this was like many, many years ago. So, when you're talking about building a team and you have a resource list of just people to use, and it's only $25 a month, I would have paid for that so long ago, because the money I lost and the time I lost learning it on my own, it would have paid for itself a million times over. So that's, I will plug the Mastermind also, just because I would have loved to have that resource when I got started. So
well, and part of the resources too is it's contractors, it's HVAC people, heating and cooling, it's plumbers, it's handymen, it's electricians, and we put in there who referred them, so you can actually call up the other Happy House Hunter Mastermind member and say, what was your experience with this person before I hire them? And so it's a personal referral to a lot of those contractors. And that's as any of us that have any number of properties, that's our biggest dilemma, is getting contractors that we can trust, that we work with, that work well with us. And that's what we're putting together on our list. So
yeah,
I'll toss that out there too. You get all of that for the $25.
That's amazing. I'm signing up today. But so, and to one sidebar is that when we talk about all these different ways to get deals, you can start to see that it's like, okay, like there's actually not a lack of deals. Like there's actually lots of good deals that are out there every single day. And I think, just like you said, you kind of niche down and you find the lane you want to be in, and then the deals won't be as plentiful, but you'll be able to assess a deal very quickly. Just even with not a lot of experience, just following and tracking, just like you said, Kathy, it takes a little while. It's a long game, but you don't want to buy the first property that comes across your desk. Now, if you have someone like if I send a deal and I say, hey, this is a really great deal, it was in Westgate, I know that you were talking about it, here's the numbers, it's great. Okay, well, that's Nate's farm area. If he says it's pretty good, let me run my numbers real quick, and hopefully you don't have to think about it as long. If it's someone else is like sending a deal because they know your criteria, sometimes that's good. You can kind of go off the rip and go a little quicker with deals like that also.
Well, and once you build relationships, I think once you have relationships, you know who you can trust. And so when somebody brings you a deal and you've worked with them in the past and you have a relationship with them, now you know that you don't have to maybe do quite your due diligence, because you know that person has your back. You know that they know what you're looking for. They've worked with you before. They know your financial history. And that's where you guys come in that are connected to the Happy House Hunters group, because as our members are wanting to 10x their investment business, you guys already, you know them personally. And that's what's so great about having that team. And that's why we want to be part of your team. So sorry about that.
Absolutely.
I had to jump in again.
No, it's great. That's like the best part about this is like, I've got little bullet points, but those little stories are way better. Like just jump in anytime. Now, one thing I will say is that I don't have this on deal flow, but it kind of goes to wholesaling and networking. One of my contractors who's like, I'd say we're along the lines of friends at this point too, but he's constantly in these neighborhoods and people are like, hey, what are you doing? Like he'll get to talking to them and realize that they're willing to sell their house. So I've personally bought 3 deals off of my contractor in the past year, and he didn't know how to wholesale or do anything. Yeah, like literally, like so. This is all right. Here's a crazy story.
That's crazy good.
Yeah. So I told him, we'd talk. I'd come, like, he was working on my house on Oakley. That's the nightmare house that I had. So he's working on that house for me. We're getting stuff done. And, one day it was super hot. I brought him some like cold Mountain Dews. They're drinking their Mountain Dews, like taking a break. And I start talking. He's like, so what are you doing now? Like, what was that thing you were talking about the other day? I was like, oh, wholesaling. I was like, yeah, I was able to do this. And I told him how it worked. And he goes, you buy houses like that? So anyways, he goes, yeah, I have a house on the west side. He's like, it's right down the street, actually. He's like, what do you think that house would be a good deal? And I was like, well, I know the numbers from this house, and those specs were the same as my house. It was just 2 streets down. So I could use the same comps that were already in my head. I already knew it. I was like, okay, and I just started asking, what's the condition of the roof? What's this? What's this? What's this? And he starts telling me, in my head, I'm just like, okay, that's 12,000, that's 8,000, that's 5,000, that's this, it's this. And so I built a budget right there, and it was not accurate. I was just spitballing.
Right.
I was like, you know what? If I could get the house for 70 grand, that would be a good deal for me. Similar to my Oakley house. I wanted it to be 75. I said 70 would be good. I gave myself the 5,000 cushion, and I was like, yeah, 70,000. He goes, okay, you want to buy it? I was like, yeah. I was like, do you have a contract? He's like, no. So I walked him through, and he's like, well, I can't go talk to him. It's, you got to go talk to him. I was like, okay, whatever. I was like, what price did he tell you? He goes, well, come on, man. I can't tell you that. I was like, I don't care. I go, my number is 70. I don't care if you're buying it from him for $1. And I put this in my notes. So I'm using my verbatim what I said in here. I was like, I'm not counting your pockets. I don't care what you're making. You can make $69,999 in this, and I won't be mad. And so he's like, all right, well, 42,000. And I was like, Brad, what? I was like, you're taxing me. And he's like, oh, I told you not to get mad. I was like, I'm just kidding. So we filled out I helped him fill it out. I took it to the guy. I was like, hey, I'm partners with so-and-so. I was like, here you go. So I went ahead and, gave him the contract. We signed it. So I went in the contract for my contractor, met him up, gave him the paper. And then I went ahead and filled out the B to C contract. So me buying it off of him for 70. And then we did the deal. And so, even like that, I structured the deal for him to win. He made about $28,000 off that deal. And it was a great deal. So then later on, he goes, hey, you ready for another one? Like, yep. So house, another one, similar story. He's like, what price would you give for this house? And I was like, okay, well, these numbers. And I was like, 110,000. He goes, okay, you want to buy it? Like, yep. And I gave him the contracts this time, but I was like, I need that contract to the title company. And the same thing, he made $30,000 on that.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 deals, $60,000 a month apart. I liked it because I was going to be building this rental portfolio. So
Right.
The houses work perfect. I know what needs to go into this one. I know what needs to go in this one. They're in my farm. I can assess a deal really quick and give him a price. He doesn't have to go shop the deal to anyone. I'm his buyer. And so fast forward to recently we had another deal, same thing. I went ahead and so I've done 3 in the past year. He made right around $90,000 off of 3 wholesale deals. I have good portfolio properties now. I got 2 good portfolio properties, and we flipped 1. So, and that's from one deal source. Get out of here. So,
and that's why it works, because now it's a win-win-win, because the seller wins because they wanted to get rid of the property. He wins because he made some money on it, and you win because it's exactly what you were looking for. So those are the best deals.
Yep. And one of the, and that's the other thing too, is like, him knowing that he can come to me with a deal, I can tell him if the deal doesn't make sense, and he's brought me, those are 3 we closed on. He's brought me probably 10 recently. And I actually hopped in a truck with another guy he knows that does roofs, he just buys and buys and buys, and he flips everything. But he said, if I can make $40,000, I'll sell any one of these houses. So we went through, and I'm sitting there with a pen and paper, like, yep, that price, okay. So we just did a tour. I went through 10 different properties with them. We did it in like a 5-hour window, went through all the properties, went inside of them, everything. His prices were all too high by quite a bit. He needs to make his money to be able to wholesale it, or he'll just take it down and flip it in the sequence of events. He doesn't care which way he does it. So I get about one deal a week that guy buys, that he gives first shot to my contractor to see if he wants to buy it. And I know that 95% of these deals are going to not work. I just know it. They're going to be priced too high. But I run every single one through a deal analyzer that I have, just like I would if it was a really great deal. Just because it might work for a client, it might work for somebody that doesn't want to, that someone that wants a project a year from now, they just want to have something in the pipeline. And so, I still analyze every deal like it's a $1 million deal. But I just, that's kind of the arrangement we have with that particular contractor. So your deal flow really does comes from anywhere too. And I guess that's on to my next point too. Let's see if there's anything else about wholesaling. Does anyone have questions about that stuff either too? Should we stop for a second?
Yep. Again, put it in the chat instead of in the Q&A. So any questions, put in the chat. I'll monitor that. Now, I do have one comment, and we might talk about this for a minute. Do you have your favorite title companies when it comes to those wholesale deals? Not every title company is comfortable or as familiar with having that contract being sold there. And then of course, then, you get down into those really nitty gritty questions like, does the contractor have to physically close on that contract before he can close on the contract with you? Or does it go through just as paper and it closes directly from the seller to you, the final buyer? That's always the big question I get in wholesaling.
Yep. And okay, I have 3 parts to that. So I'm going to touch on all 3. So, because I've run into all 3 of these scenarios, and here we go. So sometimes people are selling. So if it's savvy, okay, so it's Kathy. Kathy, I'm buying your house. You've agreed to sell me your house for $50,000. I say, great. Here's my 1-page agreement. You've seen purchase agreements before. You're like, I'm comfortable. The lingo seems great. He's buying it in his LLC. That's great too. Nate, that's great. You said you can close in 14 business days. I'm also great with that. Let me know when you need it. The house on a lockbox. I say, okay, great. I'd like to use, and so the title company that I've been using lately is Superior Title. It's very small. It's a small title company. They are usually very responsive. Courtney there is my go-to girl. So that's the one I talk to the most. They are friendly with assignments of contract. I haven't tried to do this there, but one thing they said is they don't want to double close, but they can do assignments. And so I'll talk about double closing in a second. But Courtney from Superior Title is the one that I use moving forward, even with my regular retail real estate deals.
Okay.
But so let's say that Kathy chooses to use Talon Title. So Talon Title is a very great, very reputable title company. They might not be comfortable with doing a assignment agreement, but Kathy, that's who you use every time. And so I say, okay, well, shoot, now I actually have to close on this thing. Like I actually have to show up with the money. Well, I'm just a lowly wholesaler. I don't have any cash. Like I don't have the means to buy this $50,000 house. I've got 20 bucks. So one thing that you can do is it's called a double closing. And that's where you actually bring in a private money person. And this is part of the networking process too, because I'm sure Kathy probably has access to people who do, it's called transactional funding. Yep. And what it'll look like is, we could still close at Talon Title then. They say, hey, I'm going to close, the money will be wired here. I'm going to immediately be selling the property though, to a partner XYZ. That's fine. They'd rather see you close, and then they'll do the second deed and then close with the end user. So now the thing with that is you have to as a wholesaler, you'd factor in your, it's 1% typically. What most transactional lenders will do is, so on $50,000, it's going to be a minimum of $500. Sometimes they have a minimum where it might be, a minimum of $1,000 to do the deal. So as a wholesaler, you have to make sure if you're doing that, that's what you are comfortable with. As the end user, for what we're kind of talking about, finding deals, we really don't care how the wholesaler has to navigate that, but that's one thing that might happen. You might be at a closing table that's closing in the other room, and then the title person comes over with another packet, and then you sign and buy from your actual wholesaler. So there's different ways that goes on. and then if in a perfect world, if they're doing just a contract assignment, what'll happen is the sellers pre-sign, they go ahead and sign the deed over to, XYZ LLC, and then they go in the other room. And so the seller would see the one Alta that has just their numbers, and the title person comes in and they have the second side, and it has, the end buyer, not me, I'm middleman, but the end buyer over here, and that it shows their assignment fee in there. And so that number is the part where I said, try not to get salty at your wholesaler for how much they're making on the deal. If your numbers work, focus on that, because it's very,
Right.
it can make you feel some type of way if you see a $40,000 assignment fee on a $60,000 house.
Well,
You
but
might
again, you don't know how hard that wholesaler had to work, and how many no's they had to go through, and how many
Oh.
hours of phone calling they had to do to get to that deal.
Yep. And that's actually the last part that I was going to say for my deal finding. That's one of my favorite. It's the most fun to do. It's definitely not glamorous, but driving for dollars. Oh, wait, did I have in the third part to the closing? You have the title company, double close, and then I think that was it. Did we answer all the parts of that?
Yeah, I think we covered
Okay.
it.
Okay. So this kind of goes into the whole pool of what wholesaling is. And this is how a lot of people get started at that. It's just called driving for dollars. So the reason I like to have a very hyper-focused niche that I go through is that, for me, it happens to be, I live down in Southwest Hilltop now, right near Westgate. So that's where my house, I'm right up the street from where I farm. So basically I take different ways home every day. And I'll go down a different street, or maybe it's the same street, but I notice a bunch of stuff's on the curb. So maybe someone's about to move, or, I noticed that there was the brushes are overgrown on a house, which typically they weren't before. I see a door that has a sticker on it and it says like vacant, so kind of having a farm, doing this driving for dollars, what you can do is you can drive street by street, and there's apps that can make it easier. But I just say the pen and paper it's still one of the best ways to do it. And you literally just write down addresses on houses that look like they might be distressed, or if there's a bunch of junk in the backyard. Like if there are alleys, like I like the Hilltop area. If there's alleys, I'll even drive through the alleys and look for houses that have lots of cars in the back, or if there's, a bunch of stray cats running around the back porch, or if there's a window broken out. Like those are usually good signs that house might be absentee ownered, or someone that needs help, like someone that just doesn't want to take care of their house anymore. So you go through and, you literally just drive around, find these addresses, and then you either look on the white pages or pull up the auditor's site and find out who the owner is. And there's different ways to get in contact with them. Most people use the skip tracing software. You can use the white pages. They have like the white pages premium is like 20, or I think like $6 a month or something. You can like literally just look these people up and call them through the white pages. And then, or send direct mail. There's all these different ways. And I know that it's probably in the Mastermind, but if it's not, there's also a bunch of information on Bigger Pockets about that.
Yes.
That teach you the different ways to do driving for dollars at a high level. But some of the people that have some of the biggest wholesalers in existence now started driving for dollars and still do driving for dollars, because once you do it, it is the lowest cost deal, like dollar per deal that you can get, because instead of paying someone an assignment fee, you just go out and do the legwork.
It's fun. It's fun.
It's fun.
It's
so much fun. Like I accidentally spent like a whole day doing it one time. And when I looked down at my list, we started tallying them up, and I had like 400 addresses. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was only going to have like 50 by the end. But like I saw enough houses on all the streets we were driving up and down. I had like 400.
I take Mark out with me, and we always end up someplace having dinner later on in the evening.
Yep.
And he always turns to me and he says, "Are we working or playing?"
And you know what? When you can't tell the difference, that's the best. That's literally the best. So, but if you think about it, when you do realize that you pay this, whether you like it or not, if you see an assignment fee, you start to realize you can appreciate more what that wholesaler's done to get those deals when you actually start to do legwork. And you you get a bunch of no's, you get a bunch of, people saying cuss words at you, and the biggest thing I realize I've found is that when you call somebody, a text message, people are way more aggressive through a text message than if you call them. You don't get as many connections, but people are not as likely to cuss you out on the phone as they are through text message. And so sometimes you have to get uncomfortable and just make the phone calls, or even knock on the door if you're bold enough to knock on the door of someone's house and see if they, door knocking is a really great way, because no one's going to answer the door and punch you in the face typically. Hopefully it doesn't happen to anybody, but in my experience, when I've knocked on the door for people's house, I've done door knocking before. No one, you end up having conversations more than you do anything else. And it's like, you realize it's not as scary as, a lot of people make it out to be. Like, I definitely don't want it to sound like it's a huge, scary thing. You're going to get people that say no, because they get called, they're put on, I saw Sean in the comments said land glide. So when you have people that do these giant lists, and they just blanket, I call it carpet bombing. They just carpet bomb everybody and like get all these numbers and text message and call, and they have VAs dialing them. They get fatigued. They just get fatigued. And here's the thing is that fatigue is also when someone might just say, you know what, you're the lucky person that called me today. I am ready to sell today. And you're just like, really? Like, oh my gosh.
Well,
like, okay, now what I do?
Timing is everything. And you have no idea what's going on in somebody else's world.
Yep. And so, yeah, that's a big thing, is just, just persistence, sticking it out, keep telling yourself too, like, this is not a short game. This is not something we're trying to do for like, you don't try it for a month and then stop. Like, you try it for a month, you're like, cool, I got 11 more to go before I'm at my 1 year anniversary doing this, and I've been to a few masterminds. Terry Summers had a Monopoly mastermind recently, and I was there, and one of the guys that was trying to switch from wholesaling to building a portfolio finally was that he dialed for a year straight, every single day for like 10 hours a day. And he did driving for dollars. He pulled lists from PropStream. He pulled lists from everywhere. And it wasn't until he did it for an entire year, 7 days a week for a year, he got his first deal. And it was like a $60,000 assignment fee, because he just followed up with that person so much. They're like, I'll sell you the house for 30,000. You've been calling me every single day for, an entire year. Let's do it. Like, I'll sell it to you. And it was just the right place, the right time. It was his 12th time talking to the guy on the phone. And he told me, like, there's one person he bought a house from, and she just wanted someone to go to dinner with her. And she was an older lady. She was a widow. She was a widow. And she just said, I'll sell you the house. I got to put it in the contract. You got to take me out to dinner. And he's like, okay. And so he took her to dinner, and she just wanted the company. And so now it's like a tradition, like she'll call, I think like it's like once or twice a year they go to dinner, and just to catch up and talk. And it's someone he shared that story, but it's like, it's not always these crazy bad stories of people,
Right.
stealing equity or doing all these bad things. It's like, that person needed something at the time. Someone that had the means to buy it cash helped them out. And so anyways, now we're back on, driving for dollars. That's one of the biggest, like the best low cost ways to find deals, I would say. And, it's the most labor intensive. It's the most work, but, like you said, Kathy, like you can turn a driving for dollars day into a date night real quick by, hitting, like, hey, let's do this for a half hour, and then we'll go to wherever and get a cheesesteak or something, So yeah, that's one of my favorite ways to find deals too. I actually was able to. Yeah.
By the way, the folks that are listening, just know that Nathan is like the king of lunch spots, by the way.
I've got a hashtag on Instagram.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's all over town at a different lunch spot, and so I'm in direct competition with him for places to go eat. So
Yeah.
we try to post our places, and then we watch where he's at.
Yep. Yeah, you guys have some doozies. Yeah, I will say I'm jealous. You guys spread out a little further than I do. I'm trying to keep it just in Columbus. So but yeah, and honestly, that's another good point, is that when you're inside of a restaurant or a local bar or local pub, and you hear people talking, you're able to get the inside scoop of these streets. You say, hey, do you know anything about Mound Street, on the west side of Columbus here? And people are like, oh yeah, it's a good spot. Like, okay, a lot of owners, people on there, and then you might hear someone chime in like, yeah, I live over there. That's great. I've lived there for 45 years. And you're like, oh, so you like it? That's what you're saying, and you can start sparking up a conversation. I mean, that's how my contractor finds deals. And so, he just sparks up conversations with friends, people at the jobs he's at. And so don't limit yourself to just, these other things we're talking about. Just get out and be social, have a beer somewhere, and, just strike up a conversation at the bar.
That's why Mark always says, are we working or playing? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the last really deal flow area that I kind of said are the ones to kind of stick to for without doing too many trick shots. Now there's like lots of other ways you can dig deep, and there's probate deals and some other different ways, but I think for like the lowest friction, these are some of the ways that I kind of thought would be the best I recommend for new people.
Nathan, that's a lot of great advice and lots of great information. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah.
Now, put in the chat, Nathan, I want you to put in the chat how folks can connect with you. So if anybody wants to connect with Nathan, if you want him to show you some properties or you want to talk with him further about what he presented tonight, he's going to put in the chat how to reach him. For those of you that maybe are not in a spot where you can write anything down, you can open the chat and go to the three little dots right there where you would type a message to everyone. If you click on those three little dots, there's an option to save the chat. And so you can save it right to your device if you want. You can open up the chat and take a screen print if that works better for you. And if you're not at a place where you can make any kind of notes at all, go to kathybinner.com, scroll down to the free replays. I'll put all of the contact information. I'll put the PDF download in there. All of it will be there later tonight or tomorrow morning. It'll have all of the information that you need in kathybinner.com, and scroll down to Happy House Hunters to the free meetups. And that's where you'll find everything. I want to switch over to Kyle for a minute. And Kyle, tell us just a little bit about your background, what you're doing currently, what you can help folks with. And then I want you to put your contact information in the chat as well.
So Kyle Brandon here with eXp Realty, been licensed for about 10 years. And again, Stephanie is the one who got me into the industry. And I'm a type A analytical personality. So I love crunching the numbers and running the deals and trying to figure out, what's going to be a good deal or not. Nathan, I wanted to say thanks for all the great information you shared tonight. The only thing I did want to add on top of that, a couple of deals that I did last year, because inventory was so low on the MLS and competition was so high, I actually helped 3 first-time buyers buy a FSBO, which is a for sale by owner. So very much along the lines of driving for dollars, we were just hunting in the neighborhoods they wanted to be in. And I have my spies, my friends and family out there sending me pictures whenever they see a FSBO sign in the yard. So I helped 3 first-time buyers buy a FSBO last year because they wanted a realtor to represent them, through their first purchase. It can be very complex and complicated and daunting, and fires pop up, and that's really what real estate agents are. We're firefighters.
Yes.
Whenever something catches on fire, we got to know how to put it out as quickly as possible. So again, right along the lines for driving for dollars is FSBOs. Keep your eye out for your FSBOs. And even if you don't want them, send them to me. I know somebody who's looking.
Yeah. I'll send you the ones I find too, because I typically don't. I strike out a lot with FSBOs, so I know that it's not my strong suit. So I'm more than happy to send you the information too when I see them. So.
Well, I love that. And Kyle put in the chat how folks can connect with you as well. And then again, I'll close this out for the evening. I want to thank everybody for being on and staying on with us. Adrian, Carolyn, Chris, Sean, Stewart is still with us. The replay is going to be at kathybinner.com. Scroll down to the Happy House Hunters. And again, I want to invite you. I see some of our members are in the audience tonight, but I want to invite you to be a part of our mastermind. You'll find that at the same spot, kathybinner.com. Scroll down to Happy House Hunters, and you'll see a course the 6 F's of real estate, and then you'll see the mastermind group for $25 a month. And if you join the mastermind group, you get the course. So don't buy the course separate. So if you join the mastermind, you actually get the course with it. And so we would love to have you. This is what we do a couple of times a month. We get on and mastermind all kinds of questions and answers. Once a month, we do a boots on the ground, which is the first week of every month. Kyle will take us actually through a property and we crunch the numbers, and he comes with basically how he determines the comps and how he determines what the current rents are and what your profit margin would be on that particular profit or on that particular property. So it gives you some real life experience to get out there and tour those properties for real and not just be out there on your own. And so that's the first thing we do. The second thing is a third Monday call, Zoom call, where we will discuss any problem that you're having. You just bring your questions to the table, and the whole mastermind group, we meet up on Zoom, so you can do it from your car with your phone. You don't have to physically drive anywhere. And then the fourth Thursday of every month, we meet at Gresso's because we miss seeing each other. So the fourth Thursday of every month, we all meet at Gresso's and we just share resources. So you can come with what you're looking for, and so what you have to offer to the group and what you need from the group. And everybody comes with those two things in mind. And so that's where a lot of deals take place, is on that Thursday night. So we want to invite you to that as well. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again to Nathan. Thank you so much. And to Kyle, and I'm sure I'll see you guys out and about, and I will stay in touch. And if anyone has any questions, I see Kyle put his information in there. Again, the best way to reach me is just kathybinner.com, and you can connect with me. There's a way to contact me there, call me there, email me, however you want to do that. So Carolyn says thank you to each of you. Carolyn, thank you so much for being with us. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again. So anyway, thank you everyone, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.